This week on Media Delta, Space Cobra, Part 1. A little bit suave, a little bit goofy, a little bit actiony, and completely unforgettable. Hello and welcome to another episode of Media Delta. We have a kind of an interesting one. A while ago, we took a look at a PlayStation game based on the manga / anime franchise that is Cobra. Cobra is somewhat a more obscure, like in the grand scheme of things, franchise. But it's actually it predates, or no, not predates. It dates back all the way to the 70s and is a kind of it's one of those like franchises that's much more popular in I would say certain parts of Europe and I think Latin America. It's like Lupin the Third, except Lupin the Third kind of now has a worldwide thing, but back then, like back in the 90s and 80s, it was more of a famous in certain areas. And I think in certain parts of the internet, you also might be familiar with this franchise if you are familiar with the Retsupre series of YouTube videos. I guess it's really weird to describe that in a kind of general sense, but there is a Sega CD game that is based on Cobra, which we haven't covered, but I do want to cover it. That is based on actually the events of the thing that we're talking about today. And that kind of goes over and was kind of mocked in a series of Retsupre videos. But yeah, Cobra originally as a manga. Original mangaka was Buchi Terasawa. And over the adaptations, there was a anime film that I think was just called Space Adventure Cobra that was actually done by the same person who did what we're actually talking about today, which is what we're talking about today is the 1982 to 1983 TV series or anime TV series that came out in Japan that's just labeled Space Cobra. That was directed by Osamu Dezaki, who has done quite a bit. But yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. With me, I have, I wouldn't say we have guest. So who's with me?
Torben Typist. And
Yep.
I'm here for some Captain Harlock looking motherfucker.
Yeah. So just to kind of give you a general gist of what Cobra's about, Cobra is a space pirate, and he does space pirate things, which involves getting into adventures of various kind of plots, but they almost always kind of get awful. They almost always involve some girl or anything. There's a lot of like female companions in this, but not like that. They're just side characters that happen to be female. Although he does get we'll probably go over it in the character, like when we talk about the characters. But yeah, it's a late 70s manga, so it's going to be there's some things we can discuss about the characters in this thing. So might as well just actually start going into the questions. So Torpo, how did you feel? So also I should clarify beforehand. Space Cobra is about, I think it's about 30 episodes long. And we are just covering for this particular group, or this particular episode, we are covering around 7 episodes. And over this kind of arc, before we rank it, we are going to be covering 14 episodes because basically this show kind of works in mini arcs. There are about, I'd say, I would say like 5 or 6 arcs that last a couple episodes, and then a bunch of little tiny mini arcs that usually last only an episode or two. But we're going to be covering 2 particular arcs in this kind of these duo of episodes that we're going to do on Space Cobra. And they're 2 of the more famous arcs. The first one in particular gets covered a lot. That's probably one of the more famous arcs of this series. which is what's usually labeled as the Three Sisters or the Nelson Treasure arc. We'll go into why it's called that when we talk about the characters. But yes, Torpo, what of the 7 episodes that we've watched, what were your general impressions?
I enjoyed it quite a bit, honestly, more than I thought I would. The first, I think, 3 episodes were strictly just like little mini adventures and setting things up before they went into the adventure proper.
Hmm.
Uh, and I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. It's nice seeing also Cobra as a character has a lot of personality.
Yes.
And it shows a lot in his actions, the way he moves. In general, I actually quite enjoyed the animation of the show. Like, obviously, it wasn't perfect, but it had character to it, which is something I really appreciated. It's also
Yeah.
quite colorful.
Yeah, it is very colorful. That's I believe that is a staple of Osamu Dezaki,
Mm.
who I think I want to say that he was understudied um Tezuka. He understudied again from someone that's pretty big, but I forgot exactly who. I want to say it'd have to be Tezuka because I believe he did a bunch of blackjack and other stuff. Um, but yeah, his works have a really interesting look of colors. Also, he's a real big fan of pastels.
Hmm.
One of his one of his signatures is all over this thing, which is the pastel color freeze frame. Uh, and it's something that you'll see a lot. He does really good color work. Um, and like a lot of good this series like some of the animation might not be like super high detailed, but the thing is that um actually we can well, I was going to cover that in a little bit later on, but yeah,
Yeah,
everything just this has a look to it.
it does, which I'll go into more later. But it's a solid look.
Yeah. um this like that's kind of the thing I hate about the Sega CD game, is that it really dull like the thing about the Sega CD game is that it's a kind of visual novel slash adventure game, which makes it a lot slower paced, which this show kind of moves a little bit.
It moves
Uh,
real fast.
yeah, it just things always are happening, and it's always something that's kind of interesting. Like just due to the way that it looks, even like relatively mundane tasks just kind of look interesting because there's a lot of weird things going on. Um,
Including the alien designs are like all over the place.
Yeah, that's something that's really good. Is just the fact that it and so I'm just weird. And anyway, or
The alien variety.
say, but yeah, the alien variety is really good. Um,
Hmm.
and it's something we'll see like later on. Some of the alien designs are just out. Like there are some interesting races that will show up. There's actually an arc about a particular race it's not until like the in like around the 20s, but it is a really interesting arc. But yeah, I particularly am a huge fan of Cobra because there's just an energy about this that really could have only existed in the like in the time period that it came from. You definitely
Yeah,
wouldn't get something like this today.
there's
Um,
nothing else quite like it.
yeah, because one thing I will definitely say right off the bat, because it's something that is incredibly noticeable, is that uh, this show has like a very, I would say, like I there's a kind of a weird way of phrasing it, but it has a very hypersexual energy to it. Like uh character designs, particularly for female characters, are incredibly I wouldn't say skimpy might be a word, but it is like designed like they have a look to them, but it is very very revealing clothing.
Scantily clad.
Yeah, like very like that kind of space jumpsuit kind of thing going on.
Yeah, and they're all like tall, slim, long legs.
Yeah. Um, which is not that like, and the thing about that is like, yeah, that's definitely a thing. But the characters aren't necessarily like treated like they're not objectified a whole lot. like, which I think is kind of interesting in that the
Hmm.
character, like, a lot of the female characters are like perfectly competent. Like, there aren't a whole like there are a couple cases like one of the big arcs in this thing is basically that a woman gets kidnapped. Like there's a bit of like damsel in that. Uh, but other than that, like they seem pretty competent.
Yeah.
But and also one other thing I'd like to note is that anytime you get a shot of like a like from a male character that's seen from behind, they always have very detailed asses.
Very detailed asses. I will say all of the character designs, like even the ladies, even if their build is usually similar, they all look distinct.
Yes. Uh
Fucking Crystal Bowie.
yeah. This show has some really good designs.
It does.
Um yeah. Uh the fact that in like I'm trying to think like going back to like the fact that they're like mini arcs. I don't think that any arc lasts longer than I would say let's see, because let's see, this one is 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. Like I think the longest arc is 6 episodes. Um
Hmm.
which is actually the one that we started in this group. But yeah, it's the fact that it's like the little arcs don't go on for too terribly long. Like I'm thinking of other kind of shows from this era, like if you think of your Fists of the North Stars or your Dragon Balls, how those arcs can go on forever. Like even if the arc's going on, like things are happening. Like there is never if there's ever a fight, it takes like maybe 5 or 10 minutes at most. With the exception of one episode that was in this group, which was basically they're dealing with a sniper, which even that one was like it wasn't just on this. Well, it was mostly them being basically Cobra and their companion dealing with a sniper, but it's still pretty like there were things that were happening in that.
It was very active, yeah.
Yeah, which
There's
is
very
some.
little downtime in any episode.
Yeah, this show treats your time with respect, which is something I can appreciate.
Hmm.
Uh, Also, the fact that it's a '80s anime that doesn't have a million episodes. Like, just
Yep.
thinking about how Fist of the North Star has what, like 180 episodes, I think.
Something like.
But yeah, this little group it's only 30 episodes. There are other Cobra like, and I think the other because there's Cobra the animation, which is something different. Actually, covers a different arcs altogether. I think that thing there are two OVAs which together come across 7 episodes, and the show itself is 13. So it definitely kind of this is definitely something you can get in and get out of pretty quickly,
Hmm.
which I appreciate. So is there any kind of other surface level thing we want to discuss?
No, I think that's largely it because the deep dive stuff is where the more important stuff is.
Yeah, and for going on, the kind of next thing I want to cover is I think the thing that absolutely shines about this show, that is the characters of this. So how did you feel about the characters in this?
Cobra as a character is a lot of fun. Also, to clarify my comment early on, Cobra initially had erased his memories and completely changed his face because he didn't want to be hunted by the Pirates Guild anymore. Which obviously didn't end up sticking. But originally, he looked like some Captain Harlock motherfucker.
Yeah, like this completely long green hair, like I think even had an eye patch.
I think so.
But yeah, he is definitely a very much of that type. Um,
Mhm.
but then, yeah, because basically the backstory is he was like this completely like badass space pirate who then at some point, uh, basically, disfigures a pirate. There's a pirates guild or space pirates guild that basically he in a duel kind of takes out one of their eyes, and he just basically puts a huge bounty on his head, and
Uh,
he just kind of uh he just kind of
leaves. He leaves the
he
game.
leaves and basically is like I'm just going to reshape my face and then I'm going to uh he's just I'm just going to live my life as this new face and
As a wage slave.
yeah, as a wave slave named uh, named Johnson,
Yeah, that's
um,
his name,
with
Johnson.
his android Ben, who is
Yeah, his
a
robot
dipshit.
buddy Ben.
Which, yeah, that's the first episode. Essentially, like half of it is, it's actually a very Total Recall thing, where basically,
Yeah.
I mean, it is straight up a Total Recall thing. Actually, now that I think about it, the Total Recall, I think this actually might predate Total Recall. Yeah,
Oh.
this actually predates Total Recall. So
Yeah, so for reference, he goes in to get a virtual, like, vacation, like, memories of being something else, a harem king in space. In doing so triggers all of his previous memories, and he goes absolutely apeshit.
yeah, um, and yeah, it's basically he just recome basically throughout the episode he gets all his memories back and is like, you know what, actually I'm done with this wage slave lifestyle. I'm just gonna go back and be a pirate and I'm
Yeah,
just gonna have this new phase. Which just as a point of reference, because it is an interesting
which
little bit of
I like
trivia.
his new face a lot more.
It's a very good face because it fits the tone of what the show is going for because his new face, he is actually modeled off of a real life actor, a real life French actor who is named Jean Paul Belmondo. Uh, and I think it's just one of those cases where an actor is just really popular in France or in Japan. Uh, so yeah, he's very much based. If you take a look at the picture of him, like as particularly one of him in the '80s, you can definitely see the kind of thing they were going for. Um, but yeah, he it's because the thing is, Cobra. It's like, oh, he's this badass, but also he's also an incredible goofball, which is very endearing.
Mhm.
Um, like,
He's a charismatic goofball who's never really afraid of danger.
yeah, like it. It's not like there, and he's not like the show's not afraid to make him look like an idiot in some cases, but he will always kind of pull out on top though.
Another
So,
thing I appreciate is that he's not, like, super, uh, trying to figure out how to put it.
I think the
Sexually aggressive, I guess, let's say.
yeah he's a flirt, but he's not a sleaze.
He's also only a flirt to certain specific people, and usually only if they're, like, accepting of it. Because, like, he has a working relationship with his robot, Lady Armoroid. That's
Yeah,
perfectly fine. They work great together. They're, like, the best of friends and companions. It's wonderful.
yeah,
But he never makes a move on her or flirts with her or anything.
yep. The only character like he will kind of flirt if it's like to lighten the mood, essentially. But if it's a case where it's like something's actually on the line, he will actually usually drop it.
Yeah. Also,
Um,
he will usually only really flirt if it's a mutual thing too.
yeah, and like there's like one of the major plot points of this arc, this first arc, is the fact that there are three sisters, all with giant tattoos on their back, and he like looks at them, but is never a creep about it, which is very appreciative.
Yeah, isn't like even one of them in the shower and he avoids them or something stupid like that?
Yeah, he takes a look, but it's like a very like, "Oh, what's that tattoo on your back?" It's not like a thing like you see in like a lot of like with a younger actor or like a younger character in like an anime where it's the whole peep into the shower scene. It's very as of fact.
Hmm. Yeah,
Like,
he's surprisingly respectful for a character from that time.
yes. Um, which is something it is something fascinating to me with how like how in your face the like as I mentioned, the sexualization in this thing, like I don't know if sexualization is the right term, but basically there is just an energy to it that is kind of it's definitely of that era.
Yeah,
um
it's the way the guy draws ladies really,
yeah
for
um
better or worse.
yeah which actually, speaking of that, we can probably discuss some of the other characters in this other than Cobra.
Hmm.
Oh, also we also kind of forgot to mention some things about Cobra, like his kind of one of his iconic things, which is the fact that he's like it's never quite fully explained, but essentially Cobra is like this massively like super powered human that basically can take like massive brunts of damage. But the thing is also is one of his key, like one of his signature things is his psycho gun, in which his, I believe, left arm
Yep.
is basically a hand cannon, or it's basically this cannon. Like it is and he has like a fake arm that he puts on top of it, which he just pulls off and like has like a Mega Man blaster in his arm, that basically is fed off of his psycho energy. And basically it is a like super gun that is actually it's like really like just this god weapon which he can
Hmm.
aim with his mind, and it just completely wrecks people.
It's also more powerful the more heightened his emotional state is because it's based on his willpower.
Yep. uh and he can it's great. um
It's real good.
uh but yes, I think the other characters are also pretty interesting. Like you could probably just talk about there were a few bad guys that we saw in this. Like there was that pirate guild leader that he kind of disfigured in the first episode, who basically is just like he's just kind of a
Fucking hate it.
monster. And then there's the person that you see in the second episode, which is uh was it Zygobia, I believe. This
I
is
think
how you
so.
pronounce it. Which basically he was a kind of a weird magician that can take over people's minds.
Oh, no, 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 the next one was the slave trader who could phase through matter.
Oh yeah, that's right. He could phase through matter. Uh and he got couldn't he control people through something
No,
like
that was a
that?
different character during the Three Sisters arc.
Oh, okay. Um but yeah, he basically it's like this really weird kind of thing. And then we meet in the next thing the kind of the one of the more famous villains in this series, which is Crystal Bowie,
Or
who
Crystal
is
Boy, depending.
or I because it's the thing with romanization. The way that it is that I would imagine that it's supposed to be Crystal Boy, but you could also interpret it as Crystal Bowie, just due to the way that romanization works. Um, and he is basically this dude that is basically a golden skeleton in a uh like in a humanoid like glass case, and he has a this weird hook for a hand, and he has the most wonderful sound effect whenever he walks.
Every time that clacking noise is really good.
Yeah. Which is that is one of the things I appreciate about the Sega CD game is they get that thing. I think they use these sound effects straight from the show.
Probably. And
Uh,
because he's made of crystal, normal lasers don't work on him.
yep, they just phase straight through him, which is a problem with the Psycho Gun.
Hmm.
Um,
He's also just a really good villain because he's the one person who does not ever underestimate Cobra.
yeah, he is an extremely good villain. Because
Hmm.
he does not he does not fall into like he is not vain. He is incredibly he is the person who would um like I would say he would put Cobra down, but he kind of has a few chances and kind of lets them go. But he is actually competent, which is kind of interesting. It's just kind of every the problem is that he hires a bunch of idiots.
He very much seems to enjoy the game of cat and mouse between him and Cobra, though.
Yeah, it does have that kind of feeling. Um and yeah, some of the
Which
other
is part
stuff.
of why he's enjoyable.
Yeah. Also, he has a very good he has a good villain voice too.
He's a really good villain voice.
Um yeah. And some of the other villains that they come across, which is Schultz, which is the leader of Sid Prison, this Nazi asshole.
Straight up dresses like a Nazi. It's great.
Yeah, he's wearing like a Nazi vest but no shirt underneath it. He looks like like a punk rock like front man
Hmm.
almost. I can at least see it. And then you have the other kind of bigger villain who kind of gets more than one episode, who is the magician Tarvage, who is um, one of the thing about the Sega CD game that also I feel kind of it kind of leaves out is what Tarvage actually is, because he's in that, but they don't go into what he actually is. Because when you see him, he's like this Darth Vader looking guy with a bunch these three kind of things orbiting around him. But the thing is that he only wears that because that's what he has to do to survive. Because in actuality, he is this weird plant thing that can shoot out little seeds to take control of people.
Hmm.
And this weird green kind of plant person um,
And he
who,
requires very specific heat and humidity to survive, which is why he wears the suit.
yep, because he goes out like there's a scene where they basically they Cobra and basically Cobra and pals are in the desert hiding out. And then Tarbage kind of comes to try and take them out. And basically, his suit gets damaged a little bit, and he has to go out. But he and almost has the upper hand. But then he gets exhausted from the heat, so he basically has to retreat to a refresh center, which is basically this giant bath thing. Um, yeah. Also, uh, we can probably discuss that when we talk about the allies. But his reflector thing leads to a very good scene.
It's absolutely hilarious, honestly.
Yes. So like uh that's the that's kind of the villains, but our Cobra also has some companions. One of the more famous ones, because she is the the start of the Three Sisters arc, and that is Jane, who is Jane Royal, one of the Nelson sisters, who is a bounty hunter and actually very competent. And she is one of the sisters of or one of the daughters of Captain Nelson, who basically have tattoos on their maps that, when you line them all together, lead to the ultimate treasure. And basically, she is living her life as a bounty hunter.
A very famous one, even.
Yeah, like she's racked up a huge amount of money, taking out bad guys.
To the point where
And
people know her on site and know her by name.
yeah, it's she's a pretty good character. Um, and there's also kind of the person that they have to go to Sid prison for to meet Schultz. Basically, one of the other sisters, who is Dominique, which we don't see a whole lot of Dominique in this.
No, she's mostly there and gone. She clearly cares a lot about her sister, but that's about that, and her love of Cobra are her only real personality traits, unfortunately. That and her iron will that keeps her from the torture from affecting her.
Yeah, and also a plot point that is really weird, like the fact that I don't know if I want to spoil it, because it is something that I feel like people should watch this. So I
Yeah.
actually might not spoil that. So there is a one of the there is a key thing that she does, which is kind of weird, and also like something that this show kind of mixes between, like, oh, there's a science behind it, but also there is this weird sense of fate to it
Hmm.
that's not explained, which is perfectly fine. And I
It's
feel
really
like
stupid.
it's kind of stupid, and if you think about it, but if you just kind of go with it, it makes it works.
Yeah, there's a sort of mysticism to it.
Yeah. And yeah, as we mentioned, there's a good number of aliens in this show. One of a really good one is Duck, who is a Duckinian, which basically
Uh,
means he's a
looks
little
like a
duck
duck.
dude. He looks like a duck.
On top of that, he is an informant, a criminal informant. But Cobra saves his life, so Duck actually goes to great lengths to help Cobra, even posing as an informant for the magician.
Yeah, it's if you
Which
if
makes it really fucking tragic when. Mm.
yeah, it it's something that if you're familiar with the Red Spray, you're familiar with. So there are some certain scenes that the Sega CD game is somewhat infamous for. Uh, the one of them involving Duck is even more ridiculous and great.
Oh my god, it's so good. It's so wonderfully animated.
it's great, and also reminds you that there is this scene. This thing can be the show can be somewhat like comically brutal at some points. Um, there is a scene in which when Cobra's dealing with a sniper that he runs into a mine, and there's this old kind of alien dude that's in the mine, and basically the sniper's kind of pissed off and is ratchet up her weapon to like all the way it can. Basically, this old man runs out and yells at the sniper to get away from the mine. The
It's his
sniper
gold.
to get off, yeah, because he's trying to hide his gold. And the sniper just hits him, and he just vaporizes all of his skin off of his thing, leaving the skeleton, which then fades away, leaving the skull, which then also fades away.
It's so good.
It's really good.
Oh my god, it's so good watching that man just absolutely eat it.
It
The
really is.
show's fucking brutal. It's like almost surprisingly brutal. Cobra on the regular just shoots fucking holes through people, and it's you don't see gore, but it's surprisingly graphic regardless.
It's like if you're familiar with the '80s Fist of the North Star, how like people explode, but it's all faded and red. The show kind of does something similar. Um, with basically it will like kind of almost go to black and white, but you'll just see the hole just pierce at them from a different angle, or like the psycho gun just go through people at weird angles. Um, that's really good.
It's
Um,
so good. Oh my god.
yeah, I yeah. Um,
Also, I appreciate that it doesn't take too long for Cobra to get back on his feet.
y-
Just real quick.
oh yeah,
Like they limited that to an episode. It's just an episode of Cobra trying to pick up his skills again, and that's it.
yeah, because it's like the first episode. It's like, oh yeah, I'm Cobra. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna go start going back on my journeys. And then the next episode after that is basically a one-off thing, which basically shows you what he can do, and then it gets into the arc.
Hmm.
It's I don't think that they're like I think that the biggest gap between arcs I think is there are um okay, so after the last arc of this thing, basically the arc after the Three Sisters arc, basically there are a series of 3 episodes that are kind of one-offs. But those are all kind of interesting. Um So yeah, I think we've kind of discussed the characters quite a fair bit. So let's talk about the setting. So how'd you feel about the setting slash aesthetics of the
Also,
show?
we didn't
Oh,
talk about Lady Armoroid,
oh right, yes, Lady
one of the
Armoroid.
most important characters in the show.
Yeah. So basically, Cobra's kind of compatriot is basically this
This is his
android lady.
companion.
Yeah, it's
He's his
companion.
companion.
Yeah. Who's a Armoroid, which is essentially just an android. I think I don't know if they discuss it in this particular series, but I believe the thing is that she was once human and basically got turned into an android. But yeah, basically she is this super hyper competent kind of sidekick who basically is can like kick ass really well.
Yeah, she's a
And
very skilled and always has Cobra's back, always. And
yeah,
they're like they've been through thick and thin together, to the point where the robot was her curled up inside of the robot
yes,
during the initial bit,
it's great.
just
Um
waiting for Cobra to come back. Because they, so even before Cobra lost his memory, they had been together for a while. They've been basically best friends and companions through thick and thin. And they're the best of coworkers essentially. They have a very good working relationship.
yeah, it's really good.
So it's nice to see that because like once again, there's like no romance or like sexual tension or anything like that between them. They're just good friends and coworkers. And she's always got his back. She's always on top of things, and she's very skilled. And it's nice how competent she really is.
Yeah, and it's not like she's like this kind of like no personality thing. She actually has a really
No,
good personality too.
she also likes messing with Cobra, which is why she regularly didn't wake him up on time.
Yes. She it is a very good she is a very good character.
Yeah.
Um so yeah. Um yeah, I feel like probably could like yeah, I think we should probably also discuss the setting of this thing.
Yeah.
So how'd you feel about the setting and the aesthetic of the series?
Uh it wasn't exactly like the most original setting or aesthetic. It was fucking 80s space. But it did it well. It was all very, it was a lot to take in sometimes, which I feel like worked a lot for it. Like whenever you were in the city, there were bright lights everywhere, bright flashing lights, all kinds of creatures passing by. Things were happening all the time, and it was kind of nice, honestly. And
Yeah,
there were some not so great places, like the fucking trudging through the desert. But even then, there was the abandoned town that they dicked around in for a little bit too. That was nice. Like it
yeah,
gave it a bit more personality.
yeah. I can definitely agree with that.
But
Um,
yeah, overall, I think it works pretty well for itself and is pretty enjoyable.
yeah, I really like the look of this because yeah, it's kind of the things you'd see if you're familiar with like 80s anime in terms of like spaceports and all that. The character design really helps some of the aesthetic of the places. The places themselves are kind of like if they were just like humans in them, they would just kind of look kind of boring. But it's the characters that really make it stand out. Um, yeah, it just it that I feel like the characters kind of really make this thing shine. Um, Yeah, I think basically, and also the fact that this show has a look to it, which I feel really helps. Um, so yeah, how'd you? And also, I think before the last thing we'll kind of discuss, just kind of a brief thing because I guess we're going to try and keep some of this a little bit spoilered. But how'd you feel about the storyline in general from what you saw?
In general, I found it pretty enjoyable. Once again, it's not like it's treading new ground or anything, especially in like a modern context. But it was still enjoyable. The characters honestly helped float it a lot. The
Yeah,
environments and all that too. Uh, I will say some of the earlier stuff in it though, like the slave trader one was kind of which was the episode where Cobra was getting his groove back, but like it also like look how cool Cobra is, and then the slave trader bit, and then all of the slaves are freed and they're just like climbing all over Cobra for some reason.
yeah, that was
It's
kind
like
of
the one weird part. Everything else though was fine.
yeah,
I do say it does get a bit goofy as we mentioned for like one plot point, but that we won't talk about. It can get pretty goofy, and it's like one of those things. If you step back, it's like, wow, that's really fucking dumb, but it's enjoyable, and I appreciate that.
yeah. Um, Overall, like the plot points are pretty like it's not about necessarily the originality of the story. It's just about the fun ride.
Yeah.
Um, because you can kind of see how things are going to go. Pretty like there's not a whole lot of like there are some like things that are technically or plot twists, but you kind of guessed it already.
Also, it's not cheating if everyone's dead.
Yeah. Um. Yep. So yeah, it's like the storyline. It's pretty. The stories are kind of basic, but it's more the fact of the characters make the ride much more enjoyable.
Cobra, especially, obviously carries the show because it is about him. But like as a character, I never got tired of Cobra. He's a lot of fun, but he also can take things seriously when he needs to.
Yeah, he knows when to turn it off.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, some of the plot lines that the other characters go through are kind of not exactly satisfying. I'll just say that. Um, and particularly the last episode that we saw, there are some plot things in that aren't great. But other than that, it's mostly most of the things involving Cobra are actually pretty enjoyable plot wise.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I guess with that, that's our. I guess that's kind of all we kind of need to cover in our first little thing of Cobra. If
Yeah,
you
takeaway for now.
Yeah, if you listen to this and kind of want to continue watching, I highly suggest we are going to be watching the first 14 episodes of this series. And that we just recently finished the first seven. We're not going to rank this quite yet because we're going to continue watching the remaining seven of this kind of little small group, um, including the next episode actually is the one that wraps up the arc that we're currently on, which is weird because the way that it's going, it doesn't seem like it's going to finish up some of the things, but we'll see that finished up in a little bit. So I guess since we're not going to rank it, I guess we're kind of done with this for now.
Yeah.
So before we head out, Torpo, is there anything you want to plug?
I want to so twitch.tv/torpidtypist, obviously. At torpidtypist on Twitter as well. Also, I would love to plug The Hole Left in My Body by the Psycho Gun. Fool am I.
Yes. Um, so yeah, with that, that'll be it for Cobra. Next week we are going to be discussing some. Oh, actually, one other thing before, because I just realized I'm going to add it before we leave. Music. Music in the show is phenomenal.
Oh, it's absolutely incredible. Holy shit. The title theme alone is fucking amazing.
So normally for these, I try and use music from the games that we kind of base it on, but considering the fact that the PlayStation game didn't really have a whole lot of music to begin with, also I don't know if I could even find it. I'm going to break my rule of, and I'm just going to try and deal with it. Hopefully, this does not bite me in the ass, but I'm just going to use the music for.
Just has a really fun and energetic, like jazzy soundtrack, and it's so good.
I think the Cobra theme might actually be one of my top 10 anime themes. Period.
It's incredible.
It's really good. Uh, and actually, if you're listening to this, it's probably the thing you heard at the intro, and also the thing you're going to hear as the kind of credits thing go on, which you're going to hear shortly. But yes, that's going to be it for Cobra. Next week, we are going to be discussing something completely different. A while ago, we took a look at a Genesis game based on the 90s movie that in turn was based on the really early comic that is Dick Tracy, which I'm sure will be an interesting thing, starring Warren Beatty and Madonna. And I've heard pretty good things about it, so I'm sure that'll be a fun watch. And yeah, that'll be next week. So with that, thank you all for listening. If you would like to look at the full list of rankings for yourself, please visit r3.ldp.life and go to the Media Delta List tab. If you would like to watch Media Delta's sister show, Retro Rank Rhapsody, you can either watch at youtube.ldp.life or by tuning into twitch.tv/LoadedPuzzlo at 7:30 p.m. on Fridays, 2:30 p.m. on Saturdays, and 1 p.m. on Sundays. All those times are from the Eastern U.S. time zone. If you would like to discuss this episode with the community, you can do so by joining our Discord server, which you can do so by going to discord.ldp.life. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you tune in for our next episode.